The Stormcast Eternals are warriors without equal. Each of them was once a hero of the mortal realms, snatched from death by the storm god Sigmar, and remade into towering beings infused with lightning. The storm hosts of the Stormcast Eternals are as diverse as the realms they are sworn to protect, and have each become legends in their own right for their great deeds and unique talents. The Astral Templars, for instance, are superb monster hunters, while the wise Tempest Lords are renowned for their governance as much as for their skill at arms. Hi there, in this video I'll be showing you how to paint 5 different Stormhost colour schemes for your Stormcast Eternals. The methods I'll be showing you look great, but are also super quick and easy to do, so you'll have your models on the gaming table in no time. The paints we'll be using are on screen now. Remember that this is for 5 different colour schemes, so pick and choose the ones you need. Here's also a list of the extra equipment that we've used. If you're new to painting or want to brush up on your skills, you can check out the Citadel Colour Painting Essentials playlist to learn all about our paints and techniques. The Hallowed Knights are pure-hearted zealots with unshakable faith. Many were in their mortal lives priests or healers. It now falls to them to battle in the most dark and tainted corners of the realm. This grim duty has made them self-sacrificing and humble, and has earned them many allies. The Hallowed Knights can often be found fighting alongside other armies, such as the brave warriors of Sigmar cities or the mysterious tree folk of the Sylvaneth. The Hallowed Knights are awesome and have such a cool colour scheme too, utilising silver rather than that classic gold. I'll run through completely how to paint this awesome scheme, and then once we know how to paint everything from the weapon handles to the shields, we can look at how to paint the armour for some of the other Stormhosts without having to repeat the same steps. To give us a head start with this epic scheme, we can use Leadbelcher spray to undercoat our models, which is exactly what I've done here. Obviously you can use a different spray if you want to, you'll just need to add a couple of extra layers in the next step. Either way, once your model has been sprayed, you'll need to quickly coat it in Leadbelcher from the pot. Thin it down with some water and paint it all over. The paint from the pot has a slightly different finish to the spray can, so it's important that we do this now so we can tidy up any mistakes we make later on. We're also able to reach any areas where the spray may have missed, like behind any shields or weapons. Once that's done, we're ready to move on to the next step. I'm going to focus on getting all my base coats down before adding any shades or highlights. First up is Kantor Blue for any areas that I want to paint blue. You can pick out as many areas of this as you want to, but the Hallowed Knights are known for having blue shoulder pads, so that's what I'll be painting. To achieve a nice smooth finish, I'll need to thin my paint down with some water and apply it in 2 thin layers, making sure that that first one is completely dry before painting that second one. With that complete, we've already made a great start on our Hallowed Knights. Up next is Retributor armour for all that gold trim. 2 thin layers once again will do the trick. This can be quite an intricate detail, so just take your time, and if you do make any mistakes, don't worry. It's super easy to go back and neaten them up with a couple thin layers of the appropriate colour. This is where that coat of Leadbelcher from the pot really comes in handy. Whether you tidy up now or after all your base coats have been applied is completely up to you. For all the undersuit and other black areas, I'll be using Black Legion. Feel free to switch this out for a different paint like Abaddon Black if you want to, that'll work fine as well. Be as careful as you can when painting around those other colours. But if you do make any mistakes, don't worry, just go back with the appropriate colour and tidy it up. Onto Rhinox hide now, just to paint the belt and any other leather details. This is a really small detail, but it's still important that we keep our paint thin and let the first layer dry before we apply that second one. After that, there's just a couple more base coats left to add. Corax whites for the icons on the shoulder pads, and any gems too. If your model has a shield, you can also paint the lightning on that as well. You may find that you'll need to apply 3 layers of this instead of 2, but that's absolutely fine. And then Khorne red for the weapon handles and any other areas that you want to be red, such as the plume if you're painting the prime. Unlike the Corax white, 2 thin layers should be fine here. And that's all our base coats done. Now it's time to move on to shading. I'll start by using Nuln Oil straight from the pot to shade everything except the gold. While applying this, just be mindful of any pooling. Keep a spare brush to hand, so if you do see any pooling, you can simply soak up any excess. This step shouldn't take too long, but the drying process can take some time. I'd recommend leaving your model for an hour or so to fully dry before moving on. Up next is Reikland Flesh Shade, straight from the pot again, to shade all that gold trim. We're not applying as much of this as the Nuln Oil, so it shouldn't take as long to dry. For our final shade, I'll be applying Agrax Earthshade all over the chainmail, just to add some colour variation to that silver and make it look slightly different to the armour. All that's left to do is tin all the gems with a contrast paint of your choice. I'll be using Blood Angels Red. And blammo! This Hallowed Knight is battle ready. At this point he's more than ready to take to the gaming table. But if we have time, we can add some highlights first. First up is Stormhost Silver to highlight all the metallics. You can either use a small layer brush rolled on the palette in a twisting motion to achieve a fine tip, or you could dry brush this on with a small dry brush instead if traditional highlights aren't your style. Or you could use a mixture of both methods as well. With that one highlight alone, it really takes the model up a notch. For the blue areas, I'll be using Calgar Blue. A good tip for edge highlighting is to use the edge of your brush where you can, as this is much easier. Looks great! Even though I've only highlighted a couple areas, because they're the main areas on the model, it looks awesome and almost like I've highlighted the whole mini. How many highlights you add is completely up to you. I'm going to stop here for now, and after basing him, say that my Hallowed Knight is done. But by all means, if you're keen to add more highlights and have the time, go for it. Or you could leave it for now and return to it another time. Up next is the Hammers of Sigmar. The Hammers of Sigmar are the paragons of everything Stormcast should be. Brave, relentless, and dedicated to the liberation of the realms. They never cease in their duties, each warrior dedicates every possible moment to warfare. This selfless devotion has made the Hammers of Sigmar not only heroes to humanity, but also to the draconic beasts of Azir, who serve alongside the Hammers of Sigmar in greater number than any Stormhost. So as mentioned earlier, from this point I'll only be covering what makes each of these Stormhosts different and unique, which is usually just the armour. So for the Hammers of Sigmar, the main difference comes with that rich golden armour, so let's crack on with painting it. To start off, I've gone with a Retributor Armour Spray undercoat. Once again, this is just going to give me a huge head start. Once primed, I'm going to coat all the armour with Retributor Armour from the pot in the same way we did with Leadbelcher for our Hallowed Knight. This will give us a more consistent finish, and while I'm at it, I can paint any areas that the spray may have missed. To shade all that golden armour, we'll use the same method as we did for the gold trim on our Hallowed Knight. Reikland Flesh Shade straight from the pot all over. Once again, be mindful of any pooling and let your model fully dry before moving on. Looks awesome! For the highlight colour, we can use the very same techniques and paint as our last scheme, Stormhost Silver. Edge highlight, dry brush, or use a mixture of both methods, whatever suits you. And there we are! Everything else on the model is painted in the exact same way as before, so for the weapons and shoulder pads, refer to the Hallowed Knight we just painted. I've just blocked everything else in with Black Legion, so we can see the armour in all its golden glory. Both the Hallowed Knights and the Hammers of Sigmar can be super easy. Painting metallic armour is always fun, and the other details are really straightforward to approach too. But what about something a little different? What about the Celestial Vindicators? Hate and anger burns in the heart of every Stormcast of the Celestial Vindicators. Every warrior of this Stormhost was forged from a mortal who sought vengeance in their former life. Now remade as Stormcast Eternals, they have their chance. They are as aggressive and sudden as the Tempest, surging ahead of their allies to wet their blades of blood of the hated foe. There can be no peace for the Celestial Vindicators. With each death, their fury only seems to grow. This time round, we aren't lucky enough to have a perfect undercoat spray to set us up like the last two Stormhosts. But we do have Grey Seer spray and some super handy contrast paint, so we can still quickly smash out that teal blue armour for this awesome colour scheme. Once we've undercoated our model using Grey Seer, we can apply Keelian Green straight from the pot. When base coating with contrast paint, remember to apply lots of paint and use dabbing motions rather than standard brush strokes. This will help to avoid any unwanted streaks and encourage the contrast paint to behave how we want it to, which is to base coat, shade, and to start highlighting for us. Once you've finished applying Keelian Green to your model, leave it to fully dry before moving on. After about 40 minutes, it should look like this. It's already starting to look great, but I want the colour to be a little stronger. To achieve a stronger tone, I'm going to apply Keelian Green once again, but this time mixed with contrast medium in a 1:6 ratio mix. If I applied it straight from the pot a second time, the colour would be way too dark. We just need a little more to achieve the shade we're after. Feel free to play this by ear though. If, after you've added this mix, you think it should still be even darker, by all means add some more. The Celestial Vindicators don't have blue shoulder pads, but instead have white ones. We'll be using 2 thin layers of Corax White for this, as well as any other areas that you want to be white. Feel free to add another layer afterwards if you need to, just keep them all thin so that we're left with a nice smooth coat. To shade the whites, I'll be using Northern Oil mixed in a 1:1 ratio with Lahmian Medium. You can use it straight from the pot if you want to, but I want to keep that white as crisp as I can, and mixing in some Lahmian Medium will make the shade more subtle. Once that's dry, our Celestial Vindicator is battle ready. I personally really like this Stormhost. It's such a cool colour scheme. For highlight colours, we can highlight the blue with Temple Guard Blue, and then again with Balrog Blue on the sharpest edges if you want to take it a step further. How many highlights you add is up to you, but taking the time to fully highlight the whole mini will look super cool. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine too, just a few highlights still look great. For the white highlight, we can use some White Scar, and once that's down, the armour on this Celestial Vindicator is complete. I've once again completed the base and blacked out the rest of the model so we can clearly see the armour. This has got to be one of my favourite Stormhosts. It's such a cool paint scheme. Let's move on now to our fourth Stormhost. The Knights Excelsior are uncompromising purifiers, whose hatred for corruption is legendary. They are both respected and feared, for the Knights Excelsior are brutal and direct in their methods. Often, all they leave in their wake is blackened corpses and shattered cities. Many of the Stormcast Eternals from this Stormhost are paladins, heavily armoured warriors who wield weapons that unleash bursts of searing lightning with every thunderous impact. White is often considered one of the most difficult colours to paint, but it doesn't always have to be. Thanks to White Scar Spray, we can give ourselves a great head start. The white armour is the most unique part of this Stormhost, but as you'll see, it's actually super easy. Just make sure to tidy up the undercoat with White Scar from the pots before you get started. We'll shade it using Northern Oil in a 1:1 ratio mixed with Lahmian Medium. Once again, this will just make the shade a bit more subtle and appear less blotchy over that white. We want that armour to be as crisp and bright as possible, and this is the fastest way to do it, which looks pretty great too. Be mindful of any pooling as you work your way around the white armour. Remember to leave your model for at least an hour to fully dry before moving on. Looking awesome! If you want to add a highlight, use some White Scar to pick out the edges that take your fancy, or a quick dry brush all over. Once that's done, your Knight Excelsior should be looking suitably awesome. I've painted in the blue and the gold in the exact same way as before, so we can see how they look next to the armour. And I've once again blacked out everything else, like the weapons, with Black Legion. I really like this one. It's not every day you see white armour on Stormcast Eternals, and wow, it looks nice. Now let's move on to one more Stormhost. The Anvils of Heldenhammer are the ancient warriors who have faced the horrors of the underworld and returned stronger for it. They were forged from souls that had been long dead, and they are the inheritors of the realm's most ancient warrior cultures. They wield centuries-honed strategies in battle and are terrifying to behold. A strange aura of death surrounds each warrior, striking terror into the hearts of their foes, causing them to falter or even flee outright before battle begins. A very different approach compared to the last scheme. This time I was starting with a Chaos Black undercoat. Any undercoat will do, but this one makes our first step nice and easy. And that first step is to paint Abaddon Black all over the armour. If you didn't use a black undercoat like me, you'll just need an extra layer or two, but that's no problem. Because we're painting black armour, we don't actually have to shade it yet, so we can go straight into highlighting it first. The first highlight will be Dark Reaper. Either a dry brush or an edge highlight will do here. Looks awesome. For the next highlight, Fenrisian Grey. This time we want to focus on the sharpest edges. If you're dry brushing this on rather than edge highlighting, apply this dry brush slightly lighter than the last one. This way you should still be able to see the heavier dry brush of Dark Reaper underneath it. With those highlights down, I'll add an all-over shade of Northern Oil. This will help to tone down all those highlights and bring them all together in a cohesive look. It won't really add any definition to the model, seeing as we're painting black armour, but that's not a problem. It will still look suitably awesome. For an extra optional step, you can add some Ard Coat, which is a gloss varnish, to the shoulder pads to make them nice and shiny. This will help to just break up the black armour and make it a tad more interesting. It's completely up to you whether you do this or not. If you do add this and then decide you don't like it, you can always matte it back down again using Storm Shield, which is a matte varnish. And there we go. With this Anvil of Heldenhammer complete, that concludes the final Stormhost and Stormcast Eternal colour scheme we'll be painting in this video. In this video, we covered how to paint the armour of some of the most popular Stormcast Eternal Stormhosts in quick and easy ways. From simple silver to crisp white, hopefully you found this video useful for painting your own models. Remember, it's not just Stormcast Eternals that these colour schemes look great on, so try out some other models in your Warhammer collection. For more tutorials, tips and tricks, check out some of the other videos on the Warhammer YouTube channel, or you can head to your local Warhammer store, where amazing staff are always happy to help. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye bye!